in the watered down elevator pitch of an elevator pitch. Someone said to me, Bob, what do you do? You know, what's this thing all about? And I couldn't really answer. I started coming up with all of these things. And he said, no, tell me what you do. And I thought, that's a really good point. How do you get that point across to somebody really clearly, really succinctly, so they look at you and they kind of go, tell me more. For instance, a guy who spoke here about 2 weeks ago, the candy guy up on the boardwalk. If you walked up to someone, he goes, I make candy, you'd go, all right, make candy. I'm a toffee maker and I make toffee up on the boardwalk and it's handmade, it's homemade. Now you have my attention. That's kind of interesting. So the pieces started to come together. And what I'm saying that Get Bent is all about, you'll see where I'm leading here, is we help those that protect you, we help those that protected you, and we help those that need protection. I was in the World Trade Center in 9/11. Those people attend protectors, first responders. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I know about veterans. And I'm a cancer survivor, so I also want to make sure that part of what the ethos and this brand is about is working with first responders, veterans, and kids with cancer. So what's the history of Get Bent? I started a company on Cape Cod in 2005 called Local Hooker Rods. My tagline was Get Bent. So it was Get Bent with a local hooker. And that's exactly the reaction I'm looking for. And if you don't get it, you're not my customer. But here's what I did. When I started the company, my goal, first and foremost, yes, was to make money, because if you tell other business people you weren't in business to make money, they look at you like you're out of your mind. But I really had a bigger goal. The moment I heard the name Local Hooker, I thought brand, big brand. And then I had this tagline, Get Bent, and I thought this thing's going to be tremendous. But if I want to grow this brand to where I want it to be, I need to be the best. I can't go be cheap because I'll be a flash in the pan, it'll be fun and cute for a little while, and then I'm going to be out of business. I also never crossed that line. You all know exactly what line I'm talking about, so I don't need to go there. So what I did was I found the best rod maker. We were building custom handmade fishing rods here in the US. And I found the best rod maker that I could find, and we started building really good rods. And then I had a pro staff from Kittery, Maine to Key West, Florida. And I was finding the best of the best pro staff. And I had these guys fishing my rods, and they were winning tournaments. And so between the name and winning tournaments, I started getting a lot of credibility. And the name started spreading because it's a name you're not likely to forget. So we had a lot of fun with it, but again, I never crossed that line. So I came in contact with a pro staff down in Islamorada called the Wet Dream Fishing Team. But where does it get better? I mean, I can't make this up. So here we go, and in 2010, the Wet Dream calls me and says, hey Bob, we're winning a lot of tournaments. We've been invited to the 2011 IGFA Offshore World Championship, which is basically the Olympics, the Super Bowl, and the World Series of big game offshore fishing. It's a big deal. You cannot buy your way into this tournament. It is invitation only, and you go through tournaments during the course of the year, and then you get invited to it. So it's truly the best of the best. So the Wet Dream calls me, says, we got invited, and right there I thought, this is great. They've been fishing my rods all year. I can die and go to heaven right now and be a happy man, because that's a pretty good thing. So they go down, and I'm thinking one of those, like if anybody's ever bought a lottery ticket, you're holding on and you kind of close your eyes and go, what if? What if? I mean, you know, you're just in the back of your mind, what if this one works? So I'm thinking, what if they actually won first place? Wouldn't that be great? They call me the first day from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Hey Bob, we're tied for first. Second day, Bob, we're tied for first. We're tied for first. And I'm going, that's pretty tied for first, that's pretty close. The next day they call me and say, Bob, we won. So, the Wet Dream showed the world how to get bent with a boat full of local hookers. I said that to a dinner party in Greenwich, Connecticut one night, and I had some women sit at the table, they had food coming in, but they didn't know what to say about that one. They didn't know whether to laugh, cry, smile. If you're around fishermen, if you're in Florida, you can get away with this. So, it was a big deal. It was a real big deal. And what you'll find is when you start to go through the successes, which is what Art just mentioned a moment ago, let's talk about successes and then trials and tribulations. You go through successes, everybody wants to be your new best friend. All of a sudden the phone's ringing and you are everybody's best friend. I went out and I started looking to raise money at that point. I raised $250,000. $250,000 is a lot of money. If I wrote a check right now to anybody in this room, you'd be a pretty happy camper. $250,000 to run a business is not a lot of money. And one of the things that I want everybody to take away from this today is when you're looking at your business and you're putting together your business plan, you're thinking about it, go heavy. Don't cut yourself short. I met with an attorney after things happened, and he looked at me and said, they loaned you just enough money to fail. And you're shaking your head, and if you know what that means, it's like if I gave you $300 right now to drive cross country, that would be just enough money to make it to Vegas, and you're going to run out of gas. Okay? Just enough money not to make it. And that's a really important thing to know as a small business person. You have got to put your finances together. You've got to understand your business. You've got to know where this is going and how to get there. Or when you run out of gas, like in an airplane, you've got nowhere to go but down, and that's not a good place to be. But what I did do in the meantime, when I had all this positive momentum going behind me, and I got this loan for $250,000, I put it into marketing and advertising. I did not take a paycheck. I put all the money into the business because I was never going to look back and go, I was lining my pockets while my business was going out. That wasn't going to happen. So in the meantime, you're going to notice a few things here. Up on the top left there is the Wet Dream fishing team. That's the award ceremony. That's Sammy Wharton, the captain of the Wet Dream, wearing one of my caps. Word spread quickly that I had these award-winning rods, and that's Bill Monty from The Bounty Hunter, National Geographic's Wicked Tuna, Season 1. Billy heard about these and heard about me. I contacted him, and we built some rods for Bill. That word spread. Paul Hebert. I get this phone call from Paulie one day. He goes, Bob, this is Paul Hebert. I'm here and I heard about your rods. You got to get me rods. And I'm thinking, this guy's blowing smoke at me. So I said, okay, Paul, I'll build you some rods. You come down to my shop with a National Geographic film crew and we'll build you some rods. 2 weeks later, they showed up in my shop. They wouldn't allow us to take pictures, but there is a picture right there of me and Paul and one of the cameramen in the shop. There's Paul wearing my shirt, there's Paul wearing my hat, there's Paul with my rod, with shirt. That's Dave Carrera, the night I delivered rods up in Gloucester. I got Paul and Dave out by my car. That was on the back of Dave's boat right there. I had a lot of positive things going, folks. So then I got a phone call from the small company called Bass Pro Shop. And Bass Pro, I knew Jeff Michella, the GM of Bass Pro. And I knew that I was too small to get in Bass Pro, and Jeff knew that I was too small to get in Bass Pro, but he called me one day, he goes, Bob, he goes, what the heck is going on? He goes, I got a call from headquarters today. There's this thing, Wicked Tuna, National Geographic, what's going on? I said, well, Jeff, I'm selling rods to Paul and Billy, Dave Carrera, Ralph, Marciano. They're all going to have local hooker rods on their boats, so I'm going to supply these guys. He goes, get your butt in here, we need to talk. So I go down to Bass Pro, and I'm in front of the GM of the Bass Pro, the manager of the fishing department, and his assistant, and for hours we put together a plan to bring my rods into Bass Pro. In the meantime, I'm looking at this going, how the hell am I going to do this? You know, I'm a little itty-bitty rod builder, and I'm in Bass Pro Shop. But sometimes you go with the flow. In the meantime, other positive things that happened, that's Governor Chafee of the state of Rhode Island. When I got my loan and we had a ribbon cutting ceremony, the governor came down with his group, and we had a big fluff and pomp thing going on. There's Jimmy Johnson down in Key Largo. Jimmy put some rods in his boat as well. So you could see, when we talk about successes, I was there. It was really starting to happen. I took that money too and I put it in advertising. We created a campaign that was Get Caught with a Local Hooker. And the whole point was you get a picture of you, send it into us with one of my rods, and we would then put it in. We were in Saltwater Sportsman Magazine, On the Water Magazine, Florida Sportman Magazine. I don't have this link live and I apologize, but that was a 15-second commercial that we did that was running on television. So we had a lot of really good things going on for us. The challenge that we had was that we were now running into the latter middle part of 2011. And if anybody remembers, excuse me, 2012. If anybody remembers what was going on, the economy was not in great shape. I had a very large boat company here in Florida that was ready to extend me a line of credit for $1 million. We were deep in negotiations, they were ready to go. Toward the end of 2012, they were worried about the economy, and they were very worried about the political situation in this country, and just that word uncertainty. You know, talk to people with money and you bring up uncertainty and they'll close up like a clam. So they pulled the plug at the last moment. They were just too uncomfortable with what was going on, and the moment they pulled the plug, I was out of business. The party was over, I was out of business. I didn't owe anybody any money, I didn't have to declare bankruptcy. I literally just dissolved the company and walked away. I moved to Arizona for 2 years, felt sorry, had a little self-pity party for myself, licked my wounds, but I was getting emails and phone calls and people were contacting me periodically going, Bob, why don't you bring this back? You had such a great thing going. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. 2 years later, I said, well, what the heck, let's try it. You know, I learned so much, and that's another key to this, guys. You know, when you quit, it's over. The word quit's there, it's final. When you quit, it's over. I kind of quit, but I said, I learned so much that I need to put that to work. So I'm gonna go back and do it again. So I started this brand called Get Bent. And when you look at this, more people fish than play tennis and golf combined. There's 60 million fishermen in this country that spend about $45 billion a year. Fishing, when you look at it, saltwater, freshwater, and the Great Lakes. A lot of people go, Bob, the Great Lakes is freshwater. And the answer is yes, it is. It's such a big entity that it's considered its own fishing entity to itself. That's Dustin Val right there. There's Dustin again. Dustin was the captain of the Indiana University Fishing Club. Bass fishing on college campuses is the #1 growth sport on college campuses. Not football, not basketball, not baseball, not lacrosse, not ping pong, not beer drinking, not girl chasing, bass fishing, which is quite a statistic. So here's Dustin, the president of the IU fishing team, fishing my rods, wearing Get Bent swag apparel, and his vice president, I can't make this up, his name was Sean Gillenwater. So I got Dustin fishing this. When Dustin graduated, Sean came on board and did it. There's Sammy Wharton, the president, the captain of the wet dream. And so what we're going to do with Get Bent is we're going to create a brand around this. Competition. One of the things that we're going to do is Maslow's hierarchy of needs dictate we're all humans. You know, when we were Neanderthals, we needed to belong, or you'd go out in the desert and get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. We are social beings. We do belong. We have groups. We get together. So fishing as a big entity is fine. There's 60 million people that fish. What I want to do is break it down, and where I'm going to take Get Bent is I'm going to focus on the safety aspect of this, the UV protection. Get Bent's going to be about first responders, veterans, and cancer, and working with people with cancer, helping prevent it. That's the ethos. That's what I want to impregnate people's minds when they think about it. So that's what we're going to do. There's some of the images. That's one way to cut it right down, huh?
Well, I'm not sure what happened.
Well, we're pretty close to ending because the last image was literally just a picture of the shirt. So I'm showing you what the shirts look like. And in closing, you know, that's what Get Bent is about. I'm going to start this brand. I'm going to create this brand. I've already started. I've got to go. A woman walked in here this morning, said, driving here today, she saw one of my decals on the back of a truck, which is where we want to go. So on that, I'll end it and open it to questions.
All right, thank you, Bob. Now's the portion of the event where we open it up to a conversation. You can ask questions, give advice. But we're also here to connect, so make sure you introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Mary Louise English with Revitalize Holistic Health. Hi.
There you go.
Okay. Mary Louise English with Revitalize Holistic Health. How are you bringing in the first responders and veterans? I don't get that piece.
It's a good point. She's asked, how are we going to bring in first responders and veterans? I plan on doing tournaments. I also, bringing them in and to the tournaments, raising money through tournaments for these folks. Part of what I want to do is when the brand actually gets out of retail and we start selling and we're making money, I want to be there donating money and time to those groups specifically.
And hold the microphone close. If you can't hear your voice from the speaker, you're not close enough.
Hello, Lord Sandman from Sandman Law Office Intellectual Property Attorney. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your branding efforts and if you have trademarks or what you've done to tie up and then promote Get Bent.
Great question. Yes, I have trademarked it. I own the trademark for Local Hooker and Get Bent. I own it for fishing apparel, fishing gear, and just talked to my trademark attorney last week, and there's some other trademarks that we need to go after very soon as well. So we are covered as far as trademark on some of the, categories. But as you noted, trademark things, you can trademark, iPhone, sunglasses, the list goes on and on and on, and for everything you want to trademark, there's a dollar amount associated with it. So we're going to look at which ones we're going to go after.
Hi, Ashley Moore with More Strategies for Success. How are you now getting your funding?
Getting what?
Funding. Where's the money coming from?
That's a great question. And I meant to bring it up. And one of the things that I'll tell you, it was a piece of advice I was given years ago. Always, always, always be looking for cash. Always. Because when you need it, it's too late. And it's not like going out and saying, come up and you say, Bob, I need $1 for a cup of coffee. When you're out looking for funding, it's going to take a while. Have a business plan in place, have investors in place, have a good relationship with your bank in place. Always, always be looking for cash, constantly, because when you need it, it's going to be too late. So to answer your question, I have just brought on a really good, high-powered CFO, COO. We are writing the business plan as we speak. I spoke to him yesterday. Numbers are looking real good, and we'll have a business plan by the end of this week that we're going to go out and look for investors with.
Hey Bob, I'm Mark Zimmet from the Small Business Development Center. I have a question for you. What are the top 2 or 3 challenges that you face right now?
Raising money. Seriously, raising money is always a challenge. Where do you go? At this stage of a startup, banks don't necessarily want to look at you. It's the old friends and family, it's networking, things such of this nature, angels, investors. That's really the biggest challenge right now. I know what to do with the rest of this. Marketing is my background, sales is my background. Getting the money right now to get this off and hire the people we need to do to put the things in place to get going. That's my biggest challenge at the moment.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jacob. Have you looked into crowdfunding? That is an opportunity not only to raise capital, but also to see if your concept is very desirable. You'll see how fast people pick up on it. Have you thought of that?
I have. I did a kickstart about a month ago and realized how badly I screwed that up. I have a 27-year-old nephew who came back to me and said, Bob, that's not how you're going to do it. So yes, we're going to redo it. I'm going to go back to Kickstarter. I'm going to go back to crowdfunding. There's several different things that we're going to go do, and I'm going to get the help to do it and do it right this time.
One point using crowdfunding is it is entertainment, and you have to realize that. It is the way the message is presented, and does it grab them, and is it entertaining? Not so much what the product is.
Gotcha.
Next week, we're going to have a speaker who has a great Kickstarter story, so make sure you come listen to her story.
Doug Gilligan, James Morning Company, CPAs. Have you talked to like Boston Whaler or Sea Ray? I mean, they're local businesses, or maybe even Costa Del Mar Sunglasses. I mean, I know Costa has a pretty good program for helping out small businesses.
Not yet, and part of the reason not yet is because having done it in the past, They don't really want to talk to me at the moment because I'm a complete unknown and waste of time, unless there's some guru visionary down there who just sees this and goes, I get it. Right now, I would be, and I understand it's a good question, but right now I'd be a waste of their time. I don't have anything to offer them other than I'm a guy with an idea and I got a few sales, and it's not going to be worth their time. Not unless you know somebody that you know differently. I'm all ears. I'm not saying no.
Damien from Mazoo Business Innovations. Bob, I think you're an awesome guy. I read the write-up. I think it was I don't know what paper it was, but I read the write-up. I was curious, the people that was up in the World Trade Center, in the World Trade Center with you when you were pitching, do you still stay in contact with those guys? I figure a situation like that would bring you pretty close together.
Chris Platt, who was my sales engineer that I was on the floor with, every year, either I'll call him or he'll call me, and we have a 3, 4, 5 minute conversation, and we literally just call it our birthday, and we have a couple minutes together, we share a moment, and so yeah, we're still in touch once a year.
And to make sure you're not doing the custom rods anymore, you're focusing more on the apparel and the bumper stickers and things of that nature?
Yes and no.
So if a nice enough request came in, you would probably fill that order.
I've built about 10 or 12 rods over the past couple months because I don't want to get bent confused with fishing rods again. Yes, if somebody contacts me, I will build custom rods for them. Like I said, I've just built 12 or more over the past couple months for these folks. But I don't want Get Bent to be associated with fishing rods again. I want it to be, the brand Get Bent is an apparel brand, that's what it's going to be. Local Hooker Rods is a separate entity. So I am still building rods, but on the side and quietly.
And for your social media management, if you need any help with that, I'll be more than willing to sit down with you and discuss it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you got to put it right up.
Little closer, okay. My name is Judy Anderson. I'm with Yopon LCT, also a local startup. And I'm just wondering what you're planning to do as you're marketing the startup. Are you looking for national distributors? Are you going local, door to door? What is your startup plan? Whoever will buy.
I'm a huge believer in guerrilla marketing. And I have gone door to door. It's how I started Local Hooker Rods. I literally started in Kittery, Maine, and drove to Key West, Florida in my truck, full of rods, full of equipment, and stopped door to door to door, face to face to face, and met with shop owners to present my product. I was in somewhere in New Jersey on the Christmas Eve, many years ago, and the shop owner, and it was 5:45, and it was pitch black outside, and he looked at me and said, anybody who's out selling on Christmas Eve has got my business. I said, I don't care what you're selling. And we got in, we talked. So guerrilla marketing. So what I've done was I've started off with these decals, because decals are really inexpensive to make. They're great if you got a good name and a good brand, and now you've got people paying you to put your name on their vehicle and help you advertise. Where does it get better than that? So again, the woman who drove in here this morning and saw one of my decals on a truck, she walks in, she goes, hey, was that you? I saw this thing. It's all I need to have happen, folks. So guerrilla marketing, I've gone down through the bait and tackle shops, talked to them, listened to them. What is it you like? What is it you don't like? It's called listening. It really is. Find out what the need is. One of them said to me one day, my God, if you just put the word Mosquito Lagoon on here, people will buy it because it's a destination. I went up and I met with my guy up here in Ormond, and I said, what's it going to take to put Mosquito Lagoon on? He goes, how's that? We printed it, I brought it back to the shops that night, and I said, here you go, how's this? Oh, they also said, we need bigger ones. Yeah. So I walked in with bigger ones that said Mosquito Lagoon, and they're like, how'd you do that? It's called listening to your customer. Just shut up and listen. Find out what the market's looking for. The greatest thing you can do is go out and do this, and then the guerrilla marketing. Yes, we'll grow it that way, and then we'll start getting into the bigger and moving on up from there, which is back to your point back here, you know, going into the whalers and those people. They don't want to talk to me quite yet. This has got to, it's an evolution. It's got to grow a little bit, which any small business has got to do. People want to see you're going to be around. And then that first slide I showed you, when you start having success, everybody's your best friend. But you got to get there. And then be careful who your best friends are, because they will walk away as quickly as they were there with you.
Good morning. My name is Larry Smith. You talked 2012, you had an opportunity with Pro Bass Shops, and you were looking for an opportunity for $1 million. What happened? What made you decide to walk away from it? Was it just cash flow, or the economy was just not working?
It was the other way. The investor that was going to come at me literally with a line of credit for $1 million, they were too worried. It was a big boat company here in Florida, and they were too worried about looking at gas prices being approximately $6 at the pumps. And they were worried about that. There was just too much uncertainty between the economy and politics and what was going on in the world at the time. And so they pulled the plug. And that was just the time that Bass Pro was coming to me. We were going to put an order in. I'm going to Bass Pro and saying, listen guys, I need a purchase order from you. Well, Bass Pro doesn't work that quickly. It's not like you just go in and get a purchase order. It takes time, and it takes a lot of time. And I know people who are in Bass Pro, friends of mine, they go, the good news, bad news is I'm in Bass Pro. Yeah. So I was going to Bass Pro and saying, I need an order from you, because I was going to go back to investors. I stood in front of a guy named Dan Henson, who's the president and CEO of a small company called GE Capital, with Jeff Bornstein, his CFO, and I made a presentation to them. Big picture for local hooker. And they thought that this was great, so put together a business plan and come back and tell us what you're going to do. That was the level that I was at with this thing. People really saw the vision where we're going. But man, when the economy falling apart and doing what it's doing is bad news, so I'm going back to Bass Pro and saying, give me that purchase order. I'll go back to investors and say, I have a purchase order from Bass Pro. And I couldn't get that to happen quickly enough. So it fell apart. So, you know, when you want to talk about challenges and adversity, boy, you know, I still got scrapes on my knees.
I understand.
But that doesn't mean you quit.
Bob, are you a one-man operation?
You're looking at all of us. Yes, sir. Actually, I do have a second on board right now, as I mentioned earlier. He was a CFO with a very big boat company here in Florida, and 6.5 years after he was with them, he left, and I know him fairly well. And so I got a hold of him when I first moved back to Florida, and then I heard he left the company, and I contacted him and said, hey, what do you think of this? And I sent my business plan over to him, and he had seen everything we had done with Local Hooker. He was well involved, well educated on it. And so when I went back to him, what I want to do with Get Bent, he read the business plan and thought, I think you're up to something here. And then I threw it in his lap and said, how about you put the financials together? And so we are working together as a team.
Morning, Bob. This is Jack White with Jack White Lane Company, White Child's Redevelopment. So after your second kind of round of coming back, why was the focus more on the apparel rather than the product of the rod?
Jack, that is a great question, and I'll be perfectly frank. Rich Hansen was the senior buyer for Kittery Trading Post up in Kittery, Maine. It's a small version of LL Bean. It's a big shop, but it's a small operation. And I sat with Rich one day, and he looked at me and said, Bob, your problem is that in the world of fishing, we have durables and we have disposables. You have a great product, but it's a durable. How many people need fishing rods? And how often? He said, so when someone buys a product like yours, they're hoping they have it for life. He said, so there's your durables. When you have consumables, when somebody loses a lure or somebody spools a line, whatever it might be, they don't think twice about going back and replacing it. So now they got to buy over. It's like gasoline. You think the gasoline companies want us to go electric? Of course not. You know, burn a lot of gas. It's really good for them. So what Rich said was durables and disposables. Well, what I knew I needed to do with Local Hooker was build the brand on the durable, on the rod side of it, and then I would get into disposables and I would get into the apparel once I had that brand established. So now, when I'm coming back with Get Bent, I'm not going back into the durable business. I want to get into the consumable stuff, I want to get into apparel, and then we'll get into other areas of this as well, once the brand starts to grow. Because nothing is worse than sitting on a room full of $10,000 worth of inventory and you're looking at cash just burning up every day as it sits there. And you're like, oh my God, you know, I wish I could move that stuff. Oh.
What sales channels are you using now, and which ones do you hope to move into later?
I am the sales channel. I'm going down through the local bait and tackle shops. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of the social media, I'm pushing those as well. I do have a website. Unfortunately, it's not what I want it to be or where I need it to be. So as soon as I get funded, one of the very first things we're going to do is rebuild this website. And I know exactly what to do with it because I've made enough mistakes with friggin' websites and web developers where if you don't know what questions to ask, they don't tell you what you don't know, and you then get what you didn't want because you didn't know what you really wanted. Boy, if you ever walk away from that, be careful doing that as well. But I will go through those channels. I do have some manufacturers reps because of what I've done and the experience and the networking and things that I've got from the background. I've got some people right now that are ready to pick this up and go with it. They're just waiting for me to come up with pricing, data sheets, and let them go out and start selling. So I'm pretty excited, and we're just literally days away from that as well. And I'm unfunded. I'm doing all of this on a wing and a prayer, man. So I'm ready to go, but I've jumped out of the airplane. I'm gonna build wings on the way down. I'll worry about that later. I still got a couple thousand feet before I crash.
Lou Ayers with Career Source and Stetson. My family used to be well, still is in the sport fishing industry down in Latin America, and I know that one of the biggest channels of distribution for them are like, let me call them travel agencies that specialize in fishing. Have you thought about using that as a channel? And I'm thinking of, in fact, I used to work for Frontiers out of Pennsylvania. They operate all over the world. They offer fishing packages. And I know that they offer, depending on the destination, what's needed. And it sounds like you would be applicable for just about every package they offer, that you could partner with them.
I have not thought about that. It's an interesting idea. No, I have not thought about it. I don't know where to go with it. It's just outside of what I know about. But it's an idea I would pursue.
Okay, and the last question that I had, I'm thinking of the names have played a critical role here, helping you gain traction. It seemed like the Hooker brand I think it's something that could be. I'm avoiding a pun here. It's something that could be used more heavily, and I was curious that you deviated now to Get Bent. It seemed like a detour from what your core name was, and you could have used another variation of the Hooker tagline to keep your
No, you bring up a great point, and plenty of people have said that to me. They really do. When I had Local Hooker Rods and Get Bent was my tagline, I sold a lot of t-shirts that said Get Bent because people really thought that was cute and catchy, and then they Get Bent with a local hooker, they thought that was great. By the way, more women than men bought this, just for you ladies. The reason is it gave the ability to be a little bit edgy without being trashy, and it was fun. It was all done tongue-in-cheek, so like I said, we never crossed that line, but we did have fun with it. I'm still keeping the Local Hooker brand alive. The new t-shirts that I've got out, which unfortunately we lost that last slide, you'll see the logo. It says Get Bent. There's a picture of a fish on there, and then the tagline below it is with a local hooker. So I'm still going to keep that brand alive, which is why I'm still building Local Hooker Rods, because I need to keep that alive, to keep the trademark alive, to do what I'm doing. So the answer is yes, I am. I worked really hard for that. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Tommy.
Good morning.
I had a question as far as the materials of the actual shirt for avoiding skin cancer. Did you consider the materials that are going into that and whether or not you could market it as far as something with skin cancer to avoid at all?
Absolutely. Some of the new polyester shirts have a UV factor built into up to a UV 50, I believe it is, 40 and 50. So you've got, you know, the head flaps, you've got the face protection, ears, all of that, long sleeve shirts and gloves. So virtually you can be covered from head to foot in apparel that will keep you protected from the sun right now.
Okay, because I didn't really, that didn't jump out at me when I was looking at your website. And I think with the amount of skin cancer that there is out there, that would be an incredible way to market the products.
It's exactly where I want to go. Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question on Twitter. I'm Edith Shelley. I'm representing Halifax Health today. But I was looking up you on Twitter, and I couldn't find you at first. It wasn't under Get Banned. And then I found you under Local Hookers, but it's protected, and it's not about what you were talking about. So I was just wondering that you might wonder. No, I mean, it is you. It's him. But it's not. That's not what you're. And it's private and protected. So my question is, if you're out there on Twitter, there's not a lot of people that can get to you if you're private.
And you bring up a great point, and it's a point that everybody in this room needs to pay attention to. What you just said it couldn't be truer, but we're all at fault for it. There is so much going on that one person trying to manage Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go through all the lists. I can't do it. I'm 60. I'm not that generation to do that. I'm running and managing and selling and doing things I'm doing. I don't know enough to spend the time to do that. So your point's a great point, but when you think about your business, you don't want to be in a meeting and have somebody tell you, hey, by the way, people can't find you. Think about your business. Think about how you're going to do it. Think about the people you're going to hire. Who you're going to do, who's your market, how are you going to get to these things, your website, your social media, your brand, how are you going to brand yourself, how are people going to look at you. If people can't find you, you have a problem. And now they're looking, well, I can't find them, you know, I'm not so sure I trust this. We all need to learn from this. It's really important, and thank you. I'll go take a look at it later today, because again, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that.
Hi, I'm Allie. I worked with a lot of companies. My parents own commercial cleaning, and I was actually an Argo driver local here. But I called him yesterday after reading his article.
She's a local celebrity, by the way.
Used to be. I'm a mom now.
She's a local celebrity mom.
Anyways, I called him, and one of the things that somebody there was talking about the hooker part of it. I actually was sponsored by Topless Hooker, which is one of his competitors on the screen, and got brought in to work with him. And one of the things I wanted to, and as far as branding wise for any company, even going back to my parents when they had Owens Commercial Cleaning, they had Owens Commercial Cleaning, Owens Carpet Cleaning, Owens this, and this, and this. And when I came in to help brand and market that, I had to unify it. I learned that in racing through sponsorship. I was sponsored by the IBEW, which is the electrical union, but they put electrifyingcareers.com on my car. So even though it was the union, it was very hard for people to identify electrifying careers with the union. So when I came to my parents' company, it was all one company, and instead of having multiple divisions of it, I unified it. And as far as identification and brand awareness and brand building, it just took off. People started to when they saw it out, they knew that we did all these things because it's one brand. Sorry. So as far as bringing in, Get Bent and local hookerize, I'm killing my, it's an awful thing to me. Anyway, so
going into somewhere where you're trying to brand and using social media, like she said, she is identifying you with Get Bent. But under social media, you're still under local hookerize. So for anybody going through brand building, brand awareness, and marketing, it's very important to have a unified message. You want it to be very clear, very punctual, that if it's something that's going to be catchy, have one thing that's catchy. Both of yours are awesome. It's figuring out how to make it unified where somebody's not thinking of local hookers, especially with like I said, when I worked for Topless Hooker, I did all of their branding and marketing, and it's very difficult to get that word anywhere in corporate America. Even though they'll laugh and have a good time with it, it's very, very, very cautious to bring it in. So, trying to figure out how to incorporate, get bent, and move it to the next level. You just gotta be very careful, and that's with anybody, be very careful on how many words you're planning and how many, tag, if you have a brand that's a tagline itself, try not to have a tagline on your tagline. Or if you have divisions of your company, make sure it's under one umbrella, and that's just advice that I can give you from having to be in a position where doing that and trying to figure it out, it's very confusing, but as soon as you do, the numbers just, as far as, we did so many research in development on brand building when I raced, and it went from, investing $500,000 and only getting like 1.5 million of it because the names were all over the place, and as soon as we unified it, same investment of $1.5 million. They're getting $7 to $8 million worth of brand and marketing advertising because the tag names were catching, and there's just one that they can pick out. So I'm
very excited with Allie. She read the article in yesterday's Daytona Times. Sent me an email last night telling me who she was and what she's all about. So I immediately Googled her. She's a professional race car driver. Yeah. And actually, well, she's not going to tell us, but she's a professional race car. Yeah, she's a mom, but she's a professional race car driver. And she contacted me because she read this article, and she had been doing the marketing at Topless Hooker, saw this thing I'm doing with Get Bent Local Hooker, and said, gee, I think you're onto something. Now, you want to talk about type A personalities, competitive personalities, race car drivers, female race car drivers? I want her on my team. So the reason she's here is we had about an hour conversation last night. Man, did we click. So she's here today to listen to this, and then she and I are meeting after this to go over details to figure out how we're going to take her energy and help promote this, because man, there's a gold mine, there's a diamond mine right here that we're going to go after and do. What I said earlier about the Twitter, the Facebook, and all that stuff, guess who my new best friend is? Yeah, I couldn't be happier. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Jordan Clancy, I'm resident. Quick question, what is your favorite kitchen utensil and why? Favorite kitchen utensil and why?
Wow. That's like saying, who's your favorite child? Man, that's hard. I have a real weakness for bluefin tuna fishing. So a 5.5, 80, 130 with an 80 reel on it probably is my favorite rod. Does that answer your question?
It does in a roundabout way. What about the kitchen? What about the kitchen environment?
Oh, kitchen. Oh, that's a great question. My younger brother DJ graduated first in his class from the Scottsdale Culinary Institute, which is Le Cordon Bleu. And so he's the real chef. We actually put together a local hooker cookbook a couple of years ago. So when it comes to cooking and utensils, I leave that over to him. Mine would be a spatula, I think. We good?
You said something before that kind of struck a chord about creating stickers that were relevant to a specific location, like Mosquito Lagoon. And I think there's a lot you can do with that with the brand. And I'm sorry to go again back to liking better the local hooker. What if it was local hooker at that location? And if my memory doesn't fail me, I think that many times the apparel, fishing apparel, is geographically driven. In terms of I went fishing to Cabo San Lucas, or I went fishing to Los Roques, or I went fishing to Christmas Island. So in my mind, you can play with a similar concept as Hard Rock Cafe. Hard Rock Cafe, and then the city. You could become that for fishing. Just thinking out loud.
Agreed. What I did was the day that I told you all about putting the names underneath the decals, the first thing we did was, because it was so bloomin' easy to do, is here's Get Bent Daytona Beach. So if you're a tourist and you're down at Daytona Beach, you want to tell the world that's where you went. So the same applies, obviously. There's NSB, New Smyrna Beach. There's Mosquito Lagoon. These are the ones that sold out down at a couple of the shops down by Mosquito Lagoon. So your point's a great one. And when I had the apparel, and actually, you know what, I did grab that other shirt this morning. I had one that said Cape Cod. And we sold out of those like crazy because tourists came to Cape Cod. What do they want to do? They want to buy a shirt that says Cape Cod. Then if you narrow it down even specifically to Chatham or Falmouth or whatever town, New Orleans, doesn't matter, you start breaking it down even more. The only problem with that is when you get into the apparel business, if any of you all have ever even come close to this business, SKUs. And now all of a sudden you've got small, medium, large, extra large, 2X, white, blue, red, green, silver, boom, and then you have this. So all of a sudden take that and multiply it, and man, you can run into a lot of inventory very, very quickly. So it's a great point. It can be done, but you need to be very careful because you can sit on a lot of inventory and kill yourself that way.
And then minimum orders to print them too.
All right, we got time for one more question. Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you all very much.
So every week we have a book giveaway, and now we have a sponsor for our book giveaway. Career Source is sponsoring.
You're going to get caught up after this, but you have your email.